The curtains are going to fall on one of Indian Air Force's most glorious chapters when MiG-21 will be airborne one last time, soaring its way into history. The Indian Air Force will say in rather bid adieu to the aircraft that has flown over 50 years. IAF Chief N.A.K. Brown will be in West Bengal today to take salute from 4 MiG-21 FL aircraft that will fly a box formation as their last sortie. The MiG-21 FLs would fly in the company of another aging platform from the MiG stable, MiG-27 MI and the latest Sukhoi 30 MKIs. The MiG-21 FLs joined the IAF around 1965 but only saw action in 1971 Indo-Pak War. All the bombing missions in and around Dhaka were carried out by IAF pilots flying MiG-21 FLs. It went on to become one of the most flown aircraft, which was later improvised. In fact, the aircraft ushered in the supersonic era into the Indian Air Force. Let's now go across to our Strategic Affairs editor Gaurav Sawant, who will help us understand the importance of MiG-21.
MiG-21 Type 77. This aircraft has been in the service of the Indian Air Force for the past 5 decades, and finally it's the last flight today. This aircraft was the first supersonic jet fighter in service of the Indian Air Force. It saw action for the first time in the 1965 Indo-Pak War. It proved itself in the 1971 Indo-Pak War, not just in the Western theatre, but also in the Eastern theatre. In the Western theatre, India and Pakistan saw the first supersonic air-to-air combat with this MiG-21 Type 77 FL. In the Eastern theatre, accurate rocket firing at the governor's house in Dhaka, many say, changed Pakistan's mind, led to a complete sapping of morale, and General Niazi put in his papers when this aircraft fired at the governor's house. It also saw action in the Kargil war. It's an extremely versatile aircraft, but now, of course, an aging warhorse that is to be replaced by this aircraft, which is the light combat aircraft Tejas. This, of course, MiG-21 Type 77 was used as an operational conversion fighter for all fighter pilots in MOF2, that is a MiG operational flying training unit for fighter pilots to convert from a subsonic aircraft to a supersonic aircraft. Of course, now that is done on the advanced jet trainer. This, of course, is all about the MiG-21 Type 77, the warhorse of the Indian Air Force. Now, the MiG-21 Type 77 in all the Indian Air Force has about 710 fighter aircraft. It is supposed to have 776. It is down to 710. Out of these 700, about 320 are MiG-21 aircraft, different variants. MiG-21 was meant to be phased out in early 2000, at the most given an extension till 2010, but because the light combat aircraft, the Tejas, which is supposed to replace this aircraft, is still not in the service of the Indian Air Force, so the MiG-21s will continue to fly till 2017 at least, could go up to 2025. An old aging warhorse that has served the Indian Air Force well for the past 5 decades could continue to do so for yet another decade, but that is the MiG-21 Bison version. But it once again shows how the Indian Air Force desperately needs new, better, new generation, the 5th generation fighter aircraft.
All right, so MiG-21 will be bidding adieu today. Let's get a better perspective from our Strategic Affairs editor Gaurav Sawant, who's joining us yet again. Gaurav, should India, in fact, or the IAF heave a sigh of relief as well that MiG-21 is on its way out? After all, it got a lot of sinister nicknames like Flying Coffin and Widowmaker.
Indian Air Force personnel are extremely hurt that this aircraft, which has served the Indian Air Force so well in the past 5 decades, earned that name, the Widowmaker or the Flying Coffin. And they say it's only the ill-informed that called it the Widowmaker. It did have its fair share of accidents, but they say it had a fair share of accidents because it flew much more than any other aircraft in the inventory of the Indian Air Force. This is the backbone of the Indian Air Force. Of the 776 fighter aircraft that Indian Air Force was meant to have, about 350 odd at one point of time were MiG-21s. So you fly the most, you crash the most. It is an unforgiving aircraft, no doubt. The takeoff and landing speeds are almost 300 kilometers per hour, which is extremely, extremely fast for a rookie pilot. Experienced pilots swear by this aircraft. It served the Indian Air Force very well, but no longer required, so to say, because now the nature of warfare has changed. Now you have beyond visual range missiles. You don't even see the enemy and you fire at the enemy and you bring the enemy down. So you have other aircraft, whether it's the Mirages, the Jaguars, the Sukhoi 30s, MKIs, that do that task. But MiG-21, for the role that was given to it, performed it. It had a stellar performance for the duration that it stayed in the Indian Air Force.